Olá, hoje estou aqui com Samuel Guibert, de Mas de Damasgassac, para conversar sobre uma região que a gente não fala muito, que é o Languedoc, que também produz grandes vinhos e às vezes são desconsiderados quando a gente fala de França, ou não são reconhecidos pela qualidade que eles têm. Então, a gente vai passar para o inglês agora e vai começar. Samuel, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to talk today.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. I would like to start from the beginning because many people doesn't know the history of your company, of your winery, and of your wines. And it's pretty much related with a quite interesting history of your father and mother. So I would like to know about that.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's always a bit emotional for the winemaker. I'm the winemaker and the second generation owner and winemaker to come to a country which has been, today is probably our third or second oldest importer.
Incredible.
Yeah, we work with Mistral since the mid 80s. I'm ashamed to say I've never come, but some people from my company have come before to Brazil, and this is my first time, so thank you. Well, if we go back to the beginning, we have to go back to the 60s, like 50 or 60 years ago. In the 60s, the Languedoc region, southern France, Montpellier, in between Spain and Italy,
Yes.
so that old kind of area just before Provence, was a beautiful undiscovered area, but struggling to sell wine. That area had made fortune making bulk wine,
Yes.
especially during the time where only France was exporting wine. There was no Chile, there was no Italy or Spain exporting, everything was sold inland. But Languedoc was very good at making very cheap, everyday wine, not that good. And they started to struggle when the rest of the world started to make decent, good, very good wine at an affordable price. Fortune were made in the Languedoc in the 20s, 30s, 40s, but 60s, 40s, 50s, 60s, really struggling. And then you have this man, Aimé Guibert, my dad, who was in the leather business, a bit north, in Millau, slightly 1 hour north of Languedoc. And my mother, they got married, and they were looking for a place to build or renovate a house in the countryside, not in Montpellier, not in the city, not in Millau, in between. And they looked for 2 years and found this very old mas. The mas, MAS, in southern France mean farmhouse.
Okay.
This old mas was still habited by the Domas family.
Okay.
So already you have two parts of the name, mas, farmhouse, Domas, name of the farmer, that were working there for 9 generations.
Okay.
But in 1970, when my parents met Jean Domas and his 2 sisters, they were way too old, almost 80 years old, to continue working the land. And Jean Domas was still working only with his horse, no tractor, no electricity. Water came from the well.
Wow.
It was like a movie from the 19th century. Seriously,
Incredible.
Absolutely incredible. One of the good advantage, never seen any chemical.
That's
all the
amazing.
fertilizer came straight from the animal, if you see what I mean. So at Domas, we arrive in a virgin land. But so to cut a long story short, those people were looking to sell the farm because they had a little house in the local village where they wanted to retire. My parents said, take your time, and they took 2 years. We'd love to buy your house, but at your own term. And initially, they bought the farm to be a house, not to be a farm, not to be a vineyard, just to be a house. I have 4 brothers, so 5 boys is quite rowdy, and they wanted to be outside the city, so we could run around. There was nothing to destroy, just forest. And in 1972, 1971, they moved in, and then the farm, there was some land. Most of the land was abandoned, going back to Garrigue. Garrigue is the name of the Mediterranean forest.
Okay.
Low height shrub, full of aromatic herbs, sage, rosemary, thyme, lavender, we still have. And but the farming was down to maybe 1 hectare or 2 hectares.
Oh, it's very small.
Yeah, it's very small. The rest was
It was fun.
John Domas was too old to farm it. And anyway, they decided, my father thought, okay, we're going to plant grains, maybe cereal there, because wine in the region was just going down. So you had the option of olive tree, but olive tree took a long time to grow, or maybe grain, cereal. And he had a different job, so for him it was more a hobby. My father loved planting, he loved gardening, that's definitely was his hobby. And then he called him a good friend of his, Professor Henri Enjalbert. They came from the same town, Millau. And Professor Henri Enjalbert, at the time, in 1972 or 3, was the dean, the boss, the dean of the University of Geography in Bordeaux. When you are the dean of the University of Geography in Bordeaux, when Bordeaux was still at the height of their fame, obviously you are a terroir expert.
Okay.
And Henri Enjalbert came, spent 3 days walking, researching, digging around the Gassac farm, and he came back after 3 days and said those astonishing words to my parents. He said, look, I have found in this valley a soil I have never seen anywhere else. Maybe if I had to compare it, similar to Côte d'Or in Burgundy, but warmer climate, and some slightly difference in the middle. And then he added, I believe you have a terroir to make a Grand Cru wine. Then he also added, but be careful, it took most of the Grand Cru wine 200, 300, 400, 500 years to get there. So while you have that terroir, I suggest maybe you plant vine, but you go easy on
start step by step.
Yeah, and maybe don't aim at the top. But my dad and mother were perfectionists, and when they did something, they really wanted to do in the best they could do. And my dad also had a different job, so it was just planting a few hectares just to play around. Maybe like you might have a vegetable garden, slightly bigger, and they planted. And within a few years, 1978, the first planted 72, first production 78. The first
I seen it's a lot of time.
Thomas Gassac Red was in 1978. With the help of another mentor, the first one, the godfather of the terroir, is Henri Enjalbert, the godfather of the vinification, is Professor Émile Pénaud. Nothing would have arrived without him. That a year before they were ready for the first harvest, my parents turn around and say, well, we know how to drink wine, but making wine is a different story, although that can help. And they asked Henri Enjalbert, who should we turn to learn to make a great wine, a good wine. And Henri Enjalbert, who had recommended to plant Cabernet Sauvignon on that terroir, although it's more a Pinot Noir terroir, but with the climate, he said Cabernet Sauvignon might do better, and he was right. Okay. Cabernet Sauvignon is the king grape variety of the Gassac Valley. Henri Enjalbert said, talk to Émile Pénaud. Émile Pénaud wouldn't reply to the many letters. There was no email at the time, no fax. Yeah. Many letters that my parents sent. And a lucky event, 6 months before the harvest, a good friend of my parents come to the estate, stay with them the night. The next day goes to Bordeaux. The next day goes to the barber shop, to shave. And next to him is sitting Émile Pénaud. And our friend knows Émile Pénaud. Émile Pénaud knows him. And they start talking. And our friend said, well, I've been through the Languedoc. What a beautiful country and so on. You should visit. And Émile Pénaud raised on his seat and said, Languedoc, I keep receiving letters from these mad people who want me to help. Émile Pénaud was the god of Lafite, Latour.
Incredible.
What would he have done in poor Languedoc? But our friend said, mad people, wouldn't that be the Guibert? And Émile Pénaud raised it further and say, the Guibert, yeah, that's him. Do you know them? How mad are they? Our friend must have done a good job because Émile Pénaud pretty much called or wrote to my parents, saying, I accept to meet you. But you must not ask me anything else. Basically, they meet him, they spend a week with him, and at the end of the week, it said, I accept to help you on 2 conditions. We'll never talk about money, and there was never payment. You receive a share amount of wine for sure, and you don't ask me to come more than twice a year, but you can call me any day of the year after 9 p.m. And that was the base of
incredible.
The foundation of a partnership that became a friendship. I've seen my dad until Émile Pénaud passing away in 2002 on the phone for hours, like you would talk to a mentor, like the Greek, exchanging, not just about wine, philosophy, how people used to drink, everything. And it really turned into someone like, for my dad, Émile Pénaud wasn't God, but he was a mentor that really gave him a vision at a time where my dad, 1978, first harvest, 1980, first acclaim from Goemillot, the Chateau Lafite of the Languedoc, and then someone saying more like Latour, someone called us the Petrus of the South, and so on. And my dad maybe say to Émile Pénaud one day, well, I think I've got it now. Émile Pénaud said, Guibert, if you say those words one more time, I'm leaving. He took him in the car and he gave him not a beating, but down to earth.
Look,
this is where you're just starting to learn. how to make wine.
Yes.
And he really, and my dad always, side this conversation that really humbled him and helped him to understand that wine is a journey where you learn everything. Now, Domagasak, it probably left a little influence because nowadays we are very worried about anyone who gives too much of a lesson. I don't know, someone might say screw cap is the only way. Someone say natural wine is the only real wine. Someone say, I think it's very dangerous to when and it's the same applied to politics.
Yeah.
When we start to say my way is the only way, this is bad or this is wrong. I think there's room for everyone. In restaurants, you can find McDonald's and you can find Michelin and you can find the pizza and you can there's room for everyone. And in wine, what the beauty about wine, and when you go to the Mistral Encounter, you see a room full of, I think there's about 70 wineries from at least 30 different countries, and within the countries, each region is different, and even within our region, we are Mas Domagasak, the most well-known Languedoc wine, but next to us there's a very well-known, and we do a wine that is completely apart, and we're good friends. It's that mixity, it's a diversity that makes wine so unique. When someone says you should make wine just following this way, that's dangerous.
Yes, I think that we should understand what is happening, but you don't need to make a move in any direction that someone's pointing you.
Be true
through yourself.
To ourselves. And at Domagasak, we've defined a philosophy based on the teaching of Peynaud, but not just, and that has evolved, obviously. At first, you follow the teacher, it's the path,
yes, of course.
And then you start to create your own. I'm the lucky second generation, so I can build on something that is quite established with my brother. And we are looking, our main thing is looking for excellency and respect of Mother Nature. Those are the two mottos that guide everything we do at Domagasak. Respect Mother Nature and look for excellency.
Which brings me to something. How do you, you've been in the company for 25 years. And how do you see the change in the wine scenery in the world? Because we in the magazine, we have passed through what we call the dark ages of wine, where over extraction, over maturation, over use of wood and this kind of thing. And then things are coming back. But many times when we do a vertical tasting with producers and we go longer in the past to the 80s, to the 70s, and what they are doing today, it's kind of, we were already there and we got lost in the way somehow, and now we are getting back. But you kept yourself faithful to the origin of what your father started with Émile Peynaud and whatever. But now you probably have a vision of this journey. And I would like to understand, what is the vision? How do you feel this happening? So, even though you don't jump into any...
At Gassac, we have a great heritage from my dad, who was a visionary in terms of market and winemaking. But my mother, whom I haven't taught much, but she was as much important as my dad. She's the one who said on day one, if you cut one tree, we have a vineyard that is made of 50 hectares, surrounded by 4,000 hectares of forest. When I say surrounded, it's not one vineyard.
I have seen you have plots.
67 plots in the middle of the forest. So much more work. You have one vineyard, one plot, you just take a tractor. Here we have 67 plots in the middle of the forest. So, for example, the term agroforestery is trendy nowadays. My mother in 1972 said to my dad, who wanted to wipe out the forest, and she said, if you cut one tree, I'm out. And not out of the house, but I'm divorcing you. He respected that. My mother is still alive, and she still says the same thing to us. Like, we would like to make the parking for the employee a bit bigger. Can we take a few trees? Careful if you do that. So we have been ingrained.
If you do that, you're out.
We're out. She stays. Absolutely. Since 72, we've been ingrained in. For us, it's not about being bio or agroforestery or organic. we drink the water from the Gassac River. The last word, Gassac, takes its name
Okay.
from the river in the middle. If we start spraying, the first thing that get affected is not the roots, it's underground aquifer. So from 1972, I was building tree house in that forest. I saw those trees. They are my garden. I still live on the estate. Two of my brothers still do. It's our garden. If you have a beautiful garden, you're not going to cut all the trees just
That's
to...
true.
So I don't take pride in the fact that I think my parents were way ahead of a lot of things that happened after. They were the first to build an underground cellar in the Languedoc 20 years before the next one. They didn't do it to be the first. They did it because they understood that it was the path to excellency. My mother wanted to keep the trees because she understood it was the way to preserve life and an ecosystem. And since 1972, we are a wildlife reserve, meaning no fishing, no hunting, on top of no chemical, no pesticides. So there is a real life, but not just for the vine. It's an ecosystem where I'm used to that. That's normal. And so I'm so pleased to see all our neighbors now in the last 10 or 15 years, as you said, are operating a huge change. Back to the winemaking, as you mentioned, the use of too much oak, too much alcohol, maybe a lot of extraction, maybe low acidity. For a while, I lived in New Zealand, and then for a while, I lived in California. And I remember when I was living in California, the word acidity was almost like a bad word.
Yes.
And all my friends making wine in the last 5-6 years, now they all say acidity. Things turn around. We learned from Pénaud the importance of acidity. He always talked about the 61 Bordeaux, which were leaner wine, 12.5 alcohol, 13, not 14, but with an acidity that cut, and that's part of our DNA. Whether we were very still fresh and acid wine when it was a time of opulent Robert Parker style, Michel Rolland, we don't mind. We can be alone on our little island. Now the fact that more people are coming to the island is great, not for us, but great for great because that's the kind of wine I like to drink. I like freshness. I like elegance. I don't want something that hits me in the face, but that's personal taste. I might say I like spice food, and my brother will tell you he doesn't. So that I'm not trying to convince anyone. I'm trying to say at Doma Gassac, we're trying to remain, or we're not trying, we're just remaining true to our DNA because we see the world changing, and we believe that by doing very well what we know to do, we will remain something either unique or something leading if it's that style that prevail. But we're not trying to force or convince anyone else. We're lucky because we have a second estate that we have two other estates, but a second one we just started in the last few years. Not the wine are not yet in Brazil, and it's a small production, but we've decided to make that second estate called Atelier Guibert, so the name of the family is Guibert, Atelier Guibert, a place where we can try anything that we are not doing, for example, at Doma Gassac.
Okay.
So we are not stopping ourselves from venturing in maybe orange wine, maybe something completely different, but we're trying to avoid any label that define us too much in one direction, because we believe the weather is changing. What is true one day might be different the next year. The winemaking, I've been making a wine for 25 years. I think the vintage 2024, while being superb in the southern France because we didn't have as much rain as the rest, was one of the most surprising probably I've seen over the last 15 years. I've never seen grapes which took so long to arrive to ripeness. I'm not even talking ripeness. I'm just saying ripeness. And from a month before the harvest, I said to my brother, I believe this year, ripeness, we never aim at over ripeness, but for some grapes, we try to achieve it. This year, we're looking for just a ripeness, but even if we wait 6 months, we will never get further than that. And I would say I was right to be as an ego thing, but the analysis was right. 2024 was a vintage where usually in southern France we're trying to stay away from over-ripeness. Most people in 2024 were trying to get to over-ripeness. And that's something it was just climate. There's nothing we could do about it. So all you can do is understand what's happening and try to then react by reacting, I think, picking, choosing when the picking starts, choosing how you're going to make your wine accordingly too. If you just have blinders that say, last year I did it this way, so I'm going to do it
that way. It's recipe. No,
it's not a recipe. The recipe is that there is no recipe. There are guidelines, but no recipe. So it's very humbling. And when I gather the team just before the harvest. And there's three rules. One, we don't shout in the cellar because nothing is done better by shouting. We don't run because it's dangerous. The third thing, we remember what we've done, but we start with a blank piece of paper. And any ideas that didn't work last year is good this year because they might work. And it's not easy after 25 years to keep a fresh mind. You always try to follow the same path.
Even more if you are having success.
Absolutely. But fortunately, by having new people coming into the team, they are the ones who sometimes remind us and challenge us. Hey, Samuel, why are you doing this like that? And somebody, oh, no. You think, okay, is she saying something interesting? So that's also where bringing, at Domagasak, we still do the harvest by hand. So we have 65 people coming from 19 different nationalities last year, 19 countries.
Incredible.
At Gasak, 60 people for the picking, for the carrying, for the sorting, for 1 month, living on site, eating on site, drinking on site, partying on site. And that's where we touch something intangible again, energy. Everything is energy. We know the light is energy, the sound is energy. Picking grapes, where is the energy? Well, let's take 2 rows. 1 row, you take your machine and you do it like that. One person can do the entire vineyard in 3 days. Or the other side, you put 60 people from Poland, Brazil, Japan, trying to communicate together, laughing, cutting their fingers, crying for 3 to 4 weeks. It's a huge amount of work, but I can tell you, I will never replace that energy for the machine energy. In fact, even if we wanted, we couldn't because it's too steep. But it's something excellency can be achieved not just with modernity. It can be achieved with some tradition and the way we do it, but we've adapted our picking to nowadays we picking with quads as opposed to tractor because quads are much lighter, so they won't crush the soil. So that's a form of modernity.
Okay.
50 years ago, you had no quads, for example, or very small buckets. It's not being blind by saying we do it the old way. It's trying to respect first the terroir, the mother nature, and we feel that doing everything by hand, while it's more expensive, while it's more time consuming, is respecting the fruit and the plant first and most, and then we adapt everything else around to make it work in the best possible way. And every year, my 4 brothers and I will sit with the vineyard manager, with the cellar manager at the beginning of the tasting and at the end of the harvest and at the end, and discuss, okay, what worked this year? What didn't work? And you might say, well, that's a waste of, we've done that for 25 years, that's a waste of 3 or 4 hours of your time. No, it's not, because how we follow, to go back to your question, not the trend, but how we follow how evolution can be done, because evolution, the pump we have now, I will never go back to the pump I had 20 years ago. I mean,
yes,
they are magnificent tools which respect wine much more. So I want to be embracing technology or modernity, but I don't want to embrace it just to embrace it. I want to make sure that...
You don't want to embrace fashion.
No, certainly not. I want to embrace quality or excellency. And so those 4 hours we spend all together by raising the most stupid idea, the most lead us to the next step and the next step and the next step. And we have what we call the Domagasak is a family before everything. It's Guibert. It's 4 brothers nowadays. My mother's still there. It's 9 or 10 grandchildren. None that I work full time, but they participate. And then 40 employees. But our role as the 5 brothers that lead the company is to make sure that we look at excellency. And there's 2 things, in 2 points that are the most important: the people and the wine. People and nature and the people. I don't believe any great thing can be done without great people. And when you have great people, you have to look after them in a great way. So we have those meetings called G5, like the G4, G5.
Okay.
And that's G5 for 5 giver. And we will lock ourselves outside the estate for half a day, and we discuss about everything, and we throw ideas, and it's a form of brainstorming. But it's not easy when you've grown up with your brothers. You used to be with them, but here we're talking about the company, the direction, the people, what we want, and our role is that every idea is good, but if we adopt one of them, it has to be at the majority. So 3 against 2, and the 2 that fail, they
accept and go with it.
Yeah. So we nothing new, nothing modern. Again, we remain very humble, but we don't believe because we've done it for 25 years, we know everything. And
what did you change inside the winery in order to to create the wine using these new technologies
So
that are
inside
at
the
your
wine-
disposal?
I started working in 2000 with my dad. First vintage was 2000. He was around in the cellar until 2005 and 6.
Okay.
On my left side, I had my best friend who'd been there for already 6 years, who is still there, the cellar master, Philippe. So it's a team effort. Someone has to call the shot. If there is a point where the decision is no one agrees or very difficult, someone has to call the shot and bear the responsibility. That would be me. But I don't recall a time where Philippe and I were not together on something. When it comes to, so I took over my dad in 2005-6, took another 4 years to, let's say, think. The one thing I was very clear, I didn't want the market, the consumer to say, ooh, this is a year where Samuel took over his dad. My biggest challenge was to continue making excellency, maybe better, but no one could say 1 year, this is where it changed. And so far, I've never heard that. So that I was happy with that. But as of 2008 and 9, we started to look at the wholesaler and say, how can we, with little change that made sure that it was safer for us to work, pump, where before the piston pump used to bring a lot of oxygen in the wine. We know that oxygen, if you want to avoid combining sulfur or protecting the wine, is better to avoid at some stage. So we changed everything to rotative pump.
Okay.
And you go from a 4,000 pump to a 20,000 pump, but it's worth it. With the press, we had the press that was a Vasselin press working very well for 20 years. So we tried 3 different press. And it was challenging because there's a special place where we put it. Since everything is by gravity, it has to be in a special place. We find the right one after trial, after choosing also the press for the best press, but also for the relationship we have with the people who makes it and maintain it. Because it's very good to have a brand new pump, a brand new press. What happens when during the harvest something breaks? You can have the best, but if it takes 3 days for the guys to come because they are in Champagne or in
You're lost.
So little things like that, partner relationship for the cork maker, for the barrel, for all our supplier is crucial to us. The same way we look after our people. Again, the people we work with is fundamental. That's the only way we can not blindly trust them. It's always good to have a couple of options, but also make sure you work with people you can really rely on. So some of the tools change. We install a lot more double skin. We had stainless steel skin.
Yes, okay.
One skin, not skin. One
layer.
Coat. Yeah, so we added layers to that because the control of temperature control.
Yes.
Well, we had it before. That's probably one thing that we've improved the most in the last 5-6 years. It enabled us to work in a much finer way and make sure that we have less movement with the wine. Before, you would have to pump the wine out of the tank, cool it down, bring it back. Now, when it's cold, it stays in the tank and we touch it the least possible.
So I see that you like more like a reduction ambient
to a certain extent, with a lot of pump over during pre-fermentation for the white. We do something that was very unusual. My father came up with that idea 40 years ago. We cool down the white grapes when they arrive, so no fermentation start. And for 5 days, we do a cold skin contact maceration.
Very good.
Pre-fermentation with twice a day full pump over, oxygen pump over. So there's a lot of oxygenation pre-fermentation. After, obviously, there's much less, but we try to make sure at each stage we have the greatest. So pre-fermentation, we want oxygenation, so we want things that can be easily opened. But after, we want something that can be easily closed and maintained, and maybe if it needs to be cold, like the rosé and the white, taking into account also the temperature that can be nowadays. Well, before they could be also very hot in September, but before, we could not do anything about it. We didn't have the tools. Now we have the tools. So does it add something to the wine? Yes, it does, because it enables us to move the wine the least amount possible.
And you talked about barrel as well. Yeah. How did you manage barrel from the 25 years ago for now?
Well, same thing. I didn't try to change everything. We had a long-term relationship. My dad had a long-term relationship with François Frère.
Okay.
That relationship changed. We felt most on their part in terms it was less close. So there was a point where we felt, okay, if maybe they feel less connected to us, we need to find someone who feels more connected to us. And we tried 8 or 10 or 12 barrel maker for 5 years. 5 or 6 years, and after 5 or 6 years, we decided, okay, these two, from a relationship, from
Okay.
a quality of oak, from a quality of, sometimes you arrive a new barrel and it leaks a bit. Do they reply right away?
Yes.
So all those parameters, and we choose two that we've been working since 2010 for the first one, and the other one 2014. We went to visit them. I took my entire team to visit not only the Cooper but the forest, see the process of the forest,
Okay.
the tree being cut, the mérandier where they dry the plank, so again we go to the extra end. Same with the cork. We went to Portugal, we looked at everything, looked for 10 years. We tried 8 different cork makers, and over 12 years kept a track of all the issues we had on simple, and then we kept two.
Were you tempted to go to bigger formats in terms of barrels?
We've had a couple of trials. We do trial every year,
Okay.
But we don't automatically talk about it. So someone who comes to the cellar might see a big barrel and say, "Oh, what is there?" We've tried that. So far, that's not what worked the best. But in our second estate, we have 4 or 5 Stockinger, something we've never used for the mask, but they work very well for the other wines. So that is great, because now we not only have the Dommagassac to trial, but we have that second place where we can try even more with no restriction.
All right.
So you could almost call that a lab of an experimenting
An
lab.
experiment.
Yeah.
That's great. One of the things that brings my attention is the question of the forest. How the forest, what are the size of the plots, and how the forest actually it's felt into your wines. So I would like you to share this information with the viewers.
So Mas Dommagassac, back to we'll round it up. 50 hectares of vineyard,
Okay.
67 plots, and over 40 different grape varieties between the red and the white. And we might come back to that. When you drive to Dommagassac, you arrive in a little valley nested in the middle of the forest. You follow a little road that goes over the Gassac Bridge, turn left and enter the property. You see probably the largest plot on your right, 2 hectares.
Okay.
And then everything else is forest. And if you want to see the rest, so 2 hectares out of 50 is 1 plot, and the rest, 48 plots, is 66 plot of vine. You have to either fly over it. We don't have yet our own helicopter, so we take a little path, hiking or driving, and that path will take you to a little hill, mountain, like 550 meters of altitude, where from the top you could see probably a third of all the vineyards in clearings, small clearings in the middle of the forest. Most of them have half an hectare.
Okay.
Barely 1 hectare, and most of them surrounded by forest. When there is no forest and there is hedge, we even replant every year. We replant about 200 trees or different format trees to create more hedges. And how does it interact with the vine? Well, first, it's a natural protection against frost. Frost is like a dark cloud that comes around when the sun sets and goes very slowly over the vineyard. And if you have something that stops it or filters it, it will slow down the reduction, the impact of the frost.
Okay.
Hail, if you have forest, it's going to same thing, act like a wall, protection wall. Torrential rain as well. And when it comes, rain, erosion, trees have very, very deep, especially old trees have very deep roots that retain the soil. When your soil is flat, it's okay, but when your soil is like that, on an angle, like most Dommagassac vineyard, you need to have the trees to retain the soil. We saw it in 2014, where the southern France had torrential rain in October, fortunately after the harvest. And even in our place, or the soil of where the trees were planted, no damage. Every place where there was a vineyard or a path to drive alongside the vineyard, huge hole that had been dropped. So you see the impact almost not on a daily basis, but on a yearly basis. And probably last but not least, the leaves of the trees have a small perspiration. They with the heat, they are going to release a little bit of water.
Okay.
And protect and feed the vines with a bit of humidity and protect from the sun. In 2023, we had an intense heat, like a week of 40 degrees plus. For us, it's quite hot in Languedoc, just before the harvest, like mid-August. And we saw clearly the 2/3 of the vineyard that were surrounded by trees, green leaves, holding well, perfect. The few vineyards that we had out on the open, yellow leaves falling down, the fruit starting to be a bit flabby and so on. There is no better experiment than seeing natural and so the trees can act as a big barrier against a lot of things.
But interesting that you said that 2023 was one extreme, 2024 completely different.
Yeah.
You know?
Very,
things are changing now.
It's not so much the heat that is increasing, it's a dramatic event. Like before, we had frost in 3 times over from 1978 to 2016. We had frost 3 times. Since 2016, we have had frost 5 times. Not major, apart from 2021, but we had frost much more regularly. So it's so what we call dramatic event that happen more regularly than before. That definitely we see that.
In this case, to be able to have access to many varieties should increase your capacity to deal with this, isn't
Absolutely. It's like you know, when you cook and you add a bit of spice, a bit of, you can correct maybe the lack of flavor of tomato by adding a little bit of spice that might be a brilliant. And same thing happens.
Yes.
While for Domague Sec, we are quite blessed because we really choose, when we pick each year, we say, okay, every vineyard that is 5-star quality out of 5 stars goes into the red. The rest goes into the sparkling rosé we make.
Okay.
But still, one year I might have the Nebbiolo and Dolcetto with low alcohol but high acidity, while my Merlot might be reaching 15% alcohol and low acidity. So there is that
you can manage
natural
with
correction.
Yes.
That is beautiful. Think about an orchestra. You play, I don't know, Bach symphony with one instrument, or you play it with 20 different instruments. It's going to be the same music, but the complexity of the sound is going to be slightly different.
Very good. Very good. And one last question. I have seen in your website that you are open for visitors if they want to actually visit your place. Sorry, I have 2 questions. This is one of them, but I will come to the first one, which is just the beginning of a conversation and the way I introduced you. Languedoc sometimes is a region that does not receive the attention or the recognition that should receive. And I would like you to talk a little bit about that.
Can I be blunt? Can I be straight? Okay.
Definitely.
The story of Languedoc is a story of the parents pauvres, poor parents, the one we like to hide because it could be dangerous if it becomes too big. Languedoc is the largest wine region of the world. Okay. Larger production than the whole of Australia together. So while in the past, some region of France, very famous, Hermitage, Bordeaux, were very happy to ship truck of Languedoc wine to make their wine slightly bigger, slightly darker. Even Italy, there's been some scandals, but there were also a time where it was okay. You know, there's a term, even other regions, Hermitager son vin. The wine from Hermitage will be taken to Bordeaux. Hermitage now, imagine the wine from Chaves going to Bordeaux to make some of the Bordeaux darker. That at the time was allowed and it was totally okay. But what I'm saying is Languedoc was one of these feeding regions. And maybe for some other region, it's a bit threatening to have this sleeping giant that imagine if it could become something recognized as the best or one of the best, have the fame of that Burgundy has nowadays, or the fame that Bordeaux had 20 years ago before they destroyed the golden goose. So I think there's some of the other people that kept the head under saying, yeah, they're okay, they make okay wine, but when it comes to Grand Cru, go and see. And there's also our own responsibility. You can't. It's like in a happy or unhappy marriage. You can't say that the problem is my wife or my husband. We Languedoc people have been also maybe by focusing on making for a long time in the 60s, 50s those plonk wine,
yes.
And in more recent time, maybe looking less at finesse and big bulky wine, and also being very Languedoc is very much a land of. Each vineyard is totally separated and very, not even competition, but you very rarely hear maybe people getting together to take each other wine. It's what makes Languedoc beautiful. Each village is think it's the best in the world and of the region, and also sometimes very frustrating to get anything going as a region, talk us the Languedoc or Occitanie as a region with great words. And in our case, Domagasak, we are a good example of that. When we came out, there was nothing. We were the first. We were in a land where there was no appellation, AOC or
Yes.
AOP. When they create the appellation, they create one that we could not be part because we had too much Cabernet Sauvignon. That's fine. For many years, our success was 80% export, 20% France. France had a hard time thinking that a good wine or a VDP wine could be so, compared to Lafite or Latour, coming from the Languedoc. It was just unheard of. Those times are long gone.
Okay.
For having my second hat is to look after the export. We export in 80 countries, and I have a team of 7 people, and I've been doing that for quite a while. And you still see that, okay, our luck is Mas Domagasak is quite often seen, not even Languedoc, it's a name on its own, maybe like Domaine de Trévalon or Chateau Musard, those iconic wines that don't fit the box. And that's great, but sometimes it's maybe it would help to fit the box. But you see here, until 10 years ago, the reputation of Languedoc, good wine for a good value price. And that's great. But we do miss, there was a great article written 20 years ago saying what Languedoc needs is a few more trained puller. Trained puller is a few top wineries that don't make huge amount, but are consistent, are at least known for 10 or 20 years. So they have history.
And that they play in another level.
Yeah. Right now you have Languedoc. I can give you another 5 or 6 that are there, but they are not distributed enough export wine to be known. So if you go to France, people tell Chabanon, Lagrange des Pères, Montcalmès. As soon as you go outside the region or outside France or maybe outside Europe, it's unheard of. And we need one of the quality of trained puller has to be a wine internationally distributed. And in that category, I believe in Languedoc, aside from Domagasak, there are not that many examples of a wine that tomorrow we can put a vertical tasting of 40 vintage. That's what we do every year for ourselves and for a few team of tasters, but that are distributed in 80 countries regularly on allocation. That's also part. It's not just how good is the wine, it's how well distributed, how well available, even in small quantity. When you try De Monti or La Comte Lafon, there is not much, but you know that you're going to find in Tokyo, you're going to find in Rio de Janeiro, in San Francisco, and so on. Hope that answered that first
question.
Very,
very, very good question. Thank you very much. And to finish, I would like you to talk a little bit how people could visit your winery and to get to know it.
That's very simple. That's probably the easiest question I have had all evening, all morning. I remember my parents were forward-thinker and they were ahead of their time. Well, in 1978, when they opened the cellar, they put one of those the bell that you would ring, that were like behind the bull.
Yes.
On the bell, because the house is on top of the valley and the cellar is at the bottom, where someone could drive every day. My mother just says Sunday has to be off. Not for religious question, although we are Christian, but because it's important to have with the family a day off. And someone will ring the bell, and my dad or mother will hear shout from the balcony, "Yeah, we're coming!" Go down. Seriously, it was like that, and go down. Quickly after, they employed one person, Chantal. Chantal was one of the first employees, and she, for 25 years, she was the figure with my dad and mother of the, I've seen this lovely lady, oh yeah, come back, she always knows my name. Like in a restaurant where they say, "Hello, sir, oh, I'm nice seeing you," and they know your name, and you have only come once, they come once. And so in the DNA of Domagasak, complexity, respect of nature, mother nature, and openness to welcome 60 harvesters in our kitchen, in our estate. We feed them free of charge. We welcome them. They're open. We share our life with them, and they share theirs with us for 3 weeks, and we see it as a blessing. We do the same with private visitors. We welcome about 10,000 people every year. Single visitor, not a bus tour, not organized tour. People who come out of their way to come and pick up their allocation to visit Domagasak. There is no fees. We don't charge you to taste a 10-year-old wine. You have 10-year-old wine on Corava and so on. And we have a personal tour visiting underground cellar from Gallo-Roman era, where you'll have an hour of great experience of an estate that has defy. There's not that many estate that has accomplished the level of recognition within a lifetime. A lot of estates have been built by monks, started by monks,
Yes.
400 years. But in lifetime, my parents' lifetime, to achieve that Grand Cru status within 20 years, it's quite exceptional and unique. And I see that without any ego, just looking at the fact. And we're blessed to have visitors from all over Europe, because they drive, but from the rest, American, South American, Asian, coming to visit, taste, and we welcome them. There are 3 people fully dedicated to give that time, personal, and not as a tour. You come with your family, you're taken as a family. We're not going to tell you, wait, we're waiting for another 10 people. It's really personalized, and that's part of our DNA. So
People should reserve.
So
Is it
since
better?
the pandemic, it's funny, things have changed. People have tended to reserve more. So now, because they reserve, well, you're obliged to kind of tell the others to reserve. Because if you have reserved a time and we've say, okay, we'll wait for you at 3, and there's three groups that have already done that, or 3 visitors, and people arrive out of the blue. So we encourage, yes, nowadays people to reserve. Before we never did, but since the pandemic, that's one of the things that's changed. It's for the better, because it gives us more chance to really time but it's one of those things. Yeah.
Very good.
And we love welcoming people. I say to most of my importer, and we have an importer who sends 6-7 sommeliers every year since 2002. It's our UK importer, and we established that it was in the September when we do the harvest. Most winemakers don't want to see anyone. I say, it's like the cellar. Most of the year, it's a cathedral. Quiet. During September, it's a circus. A beautiful circus. Yeah. It smells, or kitchen. It's loud. I mean, it smells, it tastes, and why not showing you at your best? And I just say, look, I might not be as available as I would be the rest of the year, but come in September, it's when everything happen. Plus Mother Nature in September and June, what we call the mid-season, is so beautiful in Languedoc, so beautiful. So it's a less discovered place than many other places, but it's such for those who like more rustic, more adventure, more authentic. Languedoc, it's hard to beat.
I must go there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. I wish you a nice stay for you, your son, your niece in Brazil during this week, and a lot of success. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Esse programa é um oferecimento Adega Online, o marketplace oficial da revista Adega.